Hi guys, welcome to this review of Doctor Strange. Essentially, I was fortunate enough that one of my friends won two tickets to see an advance showing of Doctor Strange, so I was able to see it earlier this week. Although sadly I wasn't able to make a video until today, so here we are. Spoiler warning, there will be spoilers in this review, but I will start with the non-spoiler stuff, and when I reach the spoilers, I will let you know ahead of time. And the first thing I have to mention is that this movie is beautiful looking. It is a spectacle to watch, and not just for the special effects, although there's quite a lot of them, but even the scenes where there's no real special effects, the cinematography is magnificent. It's a really beautiful film. And if you can afford it, I strongly suggest that you see it in IMAX. I'm not kidding. This movie is beautiful to look at, and you have to see it in IMAX. And I would even go as far as to say if you can see it in IMAX 3D, do that. The 3D is really excellent in this film. Usually the 3D is always very dark, but somehow even the dark scenes come off really well with the 3D. I remember when I saw the Avengers in 3D, holy crap, the picture was much darker than it was supposed to. And when you had scenes at night and you had dark on dark shapes, you wouldn't see anything. Like I remember when there's the scene with the helicopter that crashes, I didn't understand what happened. How come Nick Fury had survived? It's only when I saw it much later that I saw that, oh, Nick Fury actually jumped from the helicopter. But the black helicopter and the night with Nick Fury, you didn't see anything. So the same with Thor, the first Thor film. I saw that in 3D, and holy crap, was that a waste? The 3D on Thor was horrendous, but the 3D in Doctor Strange, holy crap, that was actually quite good. And even the scenes that happen at night in the dark with dark characters, those scenes come off really well, which usually is a challenge for 3D films. I don't know what they did in this case, but in this case, they really did a bang up job with the 3D. And the 3D is excellent. The visuals are excellent. So if you get the chance, see it on the biggest screen you can, and if you can afford to, see it in IMAX, and even better, see it in IMAX 3D. I cannot stress that enough. So who should see the Doctor Strange film? Well, if you've enjoyed the Marvel films so far, you have to see this film. It's quite as good as any of the other films that Marvel produced, and I would rate it amongst some of the best that they've done so far. If you're a Doctor Strange fan, you have to see this film. They captured Doctor Strange really well on screen. It is Doctor Strange. They stayed really close to the character from the comic. Yeah, they did take a few liberties. They always do. There's no way they're going to reproduce the character 100% as it was in the comic. But this is as close as we're ever going to get to seeing Doctor Strange on screen, and it's pretty darn close. So if you're a Marvel fan, if you're a Doctor Strange fan, you have to see this film. And I even have friends who had no idea who Doctor Strange was, who aren't that big of a Marvel fans, and still they saw that film. First, they understood quite well, so it's well made for people who have no idea who Doctor Strange is. They took the time to properly introduce the character, the setting, and everything, and they did a good job to make it so that even someone who has no knowledge of Doctor Strange will be able to understand what's going on and will be able to enjoy this film. So again, if you're a Marvel fan, a Doctor Strange fan, or even a movie fan, go see that film. You will not regret it. So that is pretty much it for the non-spoiler part of the review. So from this point forward, there will be spoilers. So if you don't want the movie to be spoiled for you, do not keep on listening. Go watch the film and come back after. So from now on, I will discuss the film and I will mention spoilers. So you have been warned. So let's address the main complaint that pretty much everyone has concerning this film. Essentially, the weakest part of the film is the story. It's not a bad story per se, but it's not a very strong story or a very strong script, I should say. But the visuals are strong enough, and the characters are likable enough, and there's quite a lot of humor that whatever flaws that the script may have, you kind of you can it's easy to ignore the flaws of the script is what I'm saying. So yes, the script is not as strong as it should, the story is not as strong as it should, but that does not ruin the enjoyment of the film. Also, a lot of people have been comparing it to the first Iron Man film. Yes, sort of like Tony Stark. We do have an arrogant uh, guy who actually gets into an accident and then decides to be a little more humble and then decides to try and save the world, or at least protect the world. So yes, it's very easy to see a parallel between the story of Doctor Strange and the story of Tony Stark in the first Iron Man film, but it's different enough that it's not that big of an issue. Also, another comment that comes back quite a lot is that it's a lot like Inception. Like they ripped off Inception with the whole cityscape folding upon itself and the building folding upon itself. Again, it's different enough that yes, I can see why some people would think that it takes its inspiration from Inception, but again, it's way different enough that that's not really an issue. Now, with that out of the way, let's talk about the various characters. I must admit, I'm not a really big fan of Benedict Cumberbatch. The first time I saw him in the film, I think, was in Star Trek Into Darkness. Then I saw a few of his smaller roles. And then finally, like a couple of years later, I finally saw his Sherlock series. And I can't say I'm really a fan of his. But in this case, it is perfect casting. He is Doctor Strange. The same way that Robert Downey Jr. is Tony Stark or is Iron Man, here Benedict Cumberbatch is Doctor Strange. He's the perfect actor for the role. The casting in this case was perfect. And even better, once you actually see him with the cloak of levitation, I still remember the first scene we actually see him with the cloak, where he actually floats in the air with the cloak in the wind. Holy crap, that was Doctor Strange. I geeked out quite a bit, and pretty much everyone in the theater geeked out quite a bit. And there's quite a few scenes like that when you see him float with the cape of levitation. Holy crap, they did a great job with those scenes. And even better, they really captured the essence of Doctor Strange. Although it was a bit strange to see, they have Doctor Strange use some magic, but they also have him use some sort of kung fu like fighting style. Like, imagine in this universe if you had, let's say, a Doctor Strange character that uses hand blasters, but also that uses martial arts quite a bit to fight enemies. They have this weird fighting style that is kind of a weird mix of magic and kung fu, so let's call it magic fu. Took me a bit to get used to that fighting style, but it's really well done. The fights are really well done, so you can enjoy looking at those fights quite a lot. And even though there's quite a few of those, it never really gets repetitive. Each fight is different enough that it's not just a repeat of the previous fight, and usually they'll raise the stakes a bit from fight to fight. And let's talk about the Cape of Levitation. Yes, I'm supposed to talk about the characters, and in this film, the Cape of Levitation is pretty much a character on its own. This seems to have made it as if the cape is alive. It's never really explained, but the way we see the cape react, that pretty much clues us in that it seems to be a sentient thing. It's not just a cape that can move; it actually can make decisions throughout the film. Think a bit of the magic carpet in the Aladdin animated film that Disney did a few decades ago. Essentially, the cape kind of acts a bit like that. So you can see it pretty much being almost alive, although it cannot talk and it's limited in what it can do. But it does seems to be sentient. At least that's the impression I got from it, and it's really well done. As soon as Doctor Strange gets the cape, holy crap, he truly becomes Doctor Strange. And the cape was the way they've handled the cape. That was really well done. It's as well done as how they handled Thor's hammer in the Thor film, or the Captain America's shield in the Captain America films. Uh, they really nailed the cape and how it actually acts. And the way it acts, it's you have to mention it in the characters because it's pretty much a character on its own. Then we have Rachel McAdams, who plays essentially the love interest in the film. Although they're not really a couple, they do hint that there was some sort of relationship like that between the Rachel McAdams' character and Doctor Strange. I don't recall her name. I think her name was Catherine. Essentially, I just remembered her as the love interest. She does a good job. She does a job her job well enough, and at some point she has to react to some magical abilities or even the cape itself, and she does a really good job reacting to those things. Personally, I really like her as an actress, and I was really glad to see her in this film. I thought she would be the perfect casting for Clea. Clea, which was the love interest for Doctor Strange in the comics for quite a while, and she even was his disciple or his apprentice. I always forget. But so I thought Rachel McAdams would be playing Clea because to me she would be perfect for the role. Maybe she is Clea in disguise, and we'll figure it out in Doctor Strange 2 or Doctor Strange 3. I guess we'll have to wait and see. But I thought it was weird that she wasn't Clea. But then again, I guess they didn't. They decided not to introduce Clea just yet in the films. And now let's talk about the most controversial character in the film, the Ancient One. In the comics, the Ancient One was a Tibetan monk, but Marvel wanted to please. They wanted people in China to go see the film, and there is some tension between Tibet and China right now. So in order to try to appease the Chinese audience, they changed the Ancient One, hoping that the Chinese people would go see the film. And also, I guess they tried to kill two birds with one stone because they also tried to appease the social justice warriors by making the Ancient One a female character. So essentially, the Ancient One, who was an old man, a Tibetan monk, is actually now a white woman, which a lot of people had issues with. Personally, I didn't have an issue with the character being played by Tilda Swinton. She's a great actress, and she pulled it off really well. I thought she would play it more with more gravitas. I thought the character would be somber or graver somehow, and she's quite a beat in some cases. She even has some snarky remarks. But she's likable when she needs to. She's funny when she needs to, and she's really sinister and imposing when she needs to. So the decision to cast Tilda Swinton as the Ancient One backfired a bit. It did not appease the social justice warriors at all. Quite the opposite. Instead of being grateful that Marvel added one more female character to the film, they complained that they changed the character from a Tibetan monk to a white person. I guess you can't please them all. Next, we have Baron Mordo. Although in the film, I don't recall him being referred to as a Baron. He was just called Mordo. He's probably my least favorite in the film, which doesn't mean he was a bad character. The character was fine, and the actor who played him did a good job. No complaint about him at all. But the character, it could have been any other character. Like it wasn't Baron Mordo. As much as Benedict Cumberbatch was Doctor Strange in the film, Baron Mordo could have been any generic sorcerer, and it would have been the same thing. So they could have given him any other name. They could have called him Baron Magic or Baron Merlin. It wouldn't matter. Essentially, they often do that. They stay very true to the character with the hero character, but then they feel that they can do whatever they want with the villain and essentially turn it into a completely different character. And then we have the character of Wong, who's played by Benedict Wong, whom I had seen in the Marco Polo TV series. He's a fine actor. He did a great job in Marco Polo, and in this film he did a really good job also. They didn't make him a manservant, and there was no way they were going to make Wong a manservant. Essentially, he's one of Doctor Strange's contemporaries. And then we have the evil Dormammu, whom again, same as Mordo, with villains, they usually take a lot more liberties than with the heroes in those films. So again, I guess The filmmakers felt that the character was a clean slate for them to do whatever they wanted, or there was just no way they were going to stay true to the comic with Dormammu. Either way, they gave us something that's quite different than what we're used to in the comics. They made him into some sort of evil god from the dark dimension or something like that. And essentially, in order to defeat him, because they in the film, Dormammu seems really, really powerful, and there's no way that Doctor Strange, who's been a sorcerer for not that long, could actually defeat such a supreme being. So essentially, they made it so that Doctor Strange actually has to trick Dormammu, which makes sense. How do you defeat an all-powerful entity? You don't. You try to trick it instead. So essentially, Doctor Strange has to use the Eye of Agamotto, which it turns out in the film is an Infinity Stone. It's actually the Time Gem, or the Time Stone, I suppose, since the Infinity Gems are now Infinity Stones. So essentially, uses the Time Stones to create some sort of time loop, which traps him and Dormammu within the loop. So whenever Dormammu kills the Doctor Strange, the loop starts over and over and over, and they're trapped there until Dormammu agrees to Doctor Strange's terms. And I almost forgot to mention Mads Mikkelsen, who plays essentially the main villain most of the film. We pretty much only see Dormammu towards the end of the film. Although he does get mentioned here and there during the film. Mads Mikkelsen did a fine job. If you ever wanted to see Hannibal Lecter versus Sherlock Holmes, this is as close as you're ever going to get with Benedict Cumberbatch, who played Sherlock Holmes, and Mads Mikkelsen, who played Hannibal Lecter. Well, now you have the two of them facing off each other, although they're facing each other off with the magic food that I mentioned before, which again was really well done. And for a Marvel film, this is probably the most self-contained Marvel film we've had in quite a while. So I guess it's a good jumping on point for viewers who somehow did not see the other Marvel films. So if you did not see any of the Marvel films so far, still you can go see Doctor Strange. There's not that many link with the other Marvel films, so you should be able to enjoy Doctor Strange by itself, even if you have no idea what the rest of the Marvel universe is about. And of course, we have the after credit scene. Actually, there's one scene that's like halfway through the credit, and there's one scene that's after the credit. So again, once the credit starts rolling, stay in your seat because you have two more scenes coming up. The first one is a scene between Thor and Doctor Strange. Essentially, Thor goes to see Doctor Strange because somehow Odin has gone missing. And they do mention Loki also a bit. I'm a bit surprised because I thought Loki had disguised himself as Odin and is pretending to be Odin on the throne. So why is Odin missing? I'm not sure what that's about. I guess we're gonna have to wait until Thor: The Dark World to understand what this scene is about. And also there is a funny moment in that scene where essentially Doctor Strange offers Thor some tea, and Thor says, "No, I don't drink tea." So then Doctor Strange gives him a mug of beer, and then Thor chugs the beer, and then as the mug is almost empty, it refills itself as if by magic. And then you see that big grin on Thor's face when he sees that, and he sees that essentially he has a bottomless beer mug, which was a funny moment. And then we see another scene where we see Mordo, who essentially decides that he's going to hunt down all the sorcerers because somehow he's evil now or something. I guess he wants to do that to sort of kind of protect the world, but essentially he's going to turn into the bad guy for very little reasons. It's about as sadly it's probably the one of the worst moment in the film, I guess. It reminded me a bit of when at the end of the Green Lantern film we have Sinestro who takes the yellow ring and becomes evil for absolutely no reason. Here they did try to set up why Mordo would decide to turn evil and to decide to hunt down sorcerers. but they didn't really earn that moment. So it's probably, to me, that probably was the worst moment in the film. And sadly, it's the very last scene we see. So it's supposed to set up what will be, I guess, the next villain in the next Doctor Strange film. But it does a poor job. So it kind of left a bad memory in my head, since that's the very last scene we see. But I would almost suggest that you leave right after the Thor scene, so that you leave the film on a high note. But if you want to see everything, then yeah, you have to see the Mordo scene. Although again, it's the worst scene in the film, but they had to set up the what will be the next villain. But they did a really poor job at doing that. So that's pretty much it for my review of Doctor Strange. So again, in short, great visuals, weak story. If I was to give it a note, I guess a grade, I guess I would give it like 8.5 out of 10. The only reason that it wouldn't get a 9 is because the story could be stronger. But it's a really strong film, and especially visually, the visuals are stunning. And if you can afford it, see the film in IMAX 3D. I cannot mention that enough. So that's pretty much it for now, guys. So again, as usual, thanks for watching, and hopefully I'll see you guys next time. Bye bye.